Hi everyone, today we are going to start 10.5, which is apply other angle relationships in circles. And our goal is to find the measures of angles inside or outside of a circle. If a tangent and a chord intersect at a point on the circle, then the measure of each angle formed is 1/2 the measure of its intercepted arc. So what the heck did I just say? If you look at the measure of angle 1 here, we know that the measure of angle 1 is half the measure of this intercepted arc. So for example, if, I don't know, this measure is 30, we then know that the arc measure is double that, so it would be 60. If we look at the measure of angle 2 here, we know that this measure is half of the measure of our intercepted arc. And we could say that that blue arc is 300 degrees. Then that means that this angle measure would be half of that, so it would be 150. So here's some practice problems. So line M is tangent to the circle. Find the measure of the red angle or the red arc. So if we look at A here, we want to focus on the measure of angle 1. So we know that the measure of angle 1 is equal to 1/2 the measure of its arc, and we know that that is arc AB. Well, it tells us that arc AB is really 130, so that means I'm going to do 1/2 of 130, and when you plug that in your calculator, you end up getting that the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees. Let's look at part B here. We want to figure out what is the measure of our arc this time. So we want to know what is the measure of arc KJL. Well, we know that it's just going to be double our angle measure, so I want to multiply 125 times 2. And when I plug that into my calculator, you get 250. So let's see if you can answer these ones on your own. For number 1, what is the measure of angle 1? Well, the correct answer is 105. How did we get that? Well, we know that the measure of angle 1 is equal to 1/2 the measure of its arc, which is 210. Plug that in your calculator, we get 105. How about question 2? What's the measure of arc RST? So RST is right here. Well, the answer is 196. How did we get that? Well, we want to take the measure of our angle. We know that angle is 98, so that measure is 98. And so we know to find the measure of our arc, we're just going to multiply that by 2. And when you do so, we get 196. And for question number 3, we want to figure out what is the measure of arc XY. Now we want to be careful here because technically it looks like there are 2 arcs, but knowing that we only have 2 letters here, we are only talking about a minor arc. So I want to just look at this arc here. So knowing our theorem, if we know that the angle measure is 80, what would be the measure of our arc? Well, we would just double 80. So 80 times 2, we end up getting 160. Intersecting lines and circles. If 2 lines intersect a circle, there are only 3 places that the lines could intersect. The first one would be on the circle. The second way would be inside the circle. And the third way would be outside of the circle. Angles inside the circle theorem. If 2 chords intersect inside a circle, then the measure of each angle is 1/2 the sum of the measures of the arcs intercepted by the angle and its vertical angle. So if I'm looking at this angle here, angle 1, how I would figure out the measure of angle 1 is that I would do 1/2 times the measure of the intercepted arcs. So in this case, arc DC and arc AB. So I would add those 2 arc measures up, divide that number by 2, and that would give me the measure of angle 1. Angle 2 is very similar, so we are now looking at this angle here. So to find the measure of angle 2, I would do 1/2 times these two intercepted arcs, the sum of those, and we would get our answer. Angles outside of a circle theorem: if a tangent and a secant, two tangents, or two secants intersect outside of the circle, then the measure of the angle formed is 1/2 the difference of the measures of the intercepted arc. So if I'm looking at this angle measure here, I would do 1/2 times the difference of these two measures. Remember, difference means subtraction. If I'm looking at angle 2 here, I would do 1/2 the difference of these two arc measures. And if I'm looking at angle 3 here, same thing. I would do 1/2 times the difference of my two arc measures. So remember, when the intersection is inside, we're going to use addition. When the two lines collide outside, we're going to use subtraction. So let's try to put this all together. So find an angle measure inside of a circle. All right, so inside, are we going to be using addition or subtraction with my equation? We're going to be using addition. All right, so here's my angle measure. So I know that if I'm trying to find x, this is going to equal 1/2 the sum of our two arc measures. So what are my two arc measures? Well, one is 130. The other is 156. I can plug that right into my calculator, and I end up getting 1/2 times 286, and this simplifies to 143. Find an angle measure outside of the circle. For this, would I be using the equation with addition or subtraction? And it would be subtraction. So find the value of x. So x here is my angle. I know I'm going to do 1/2, and this time I'm going to do the difference of my two arcs. Since we're working with the difference, you have to be careful here. We want to do the larger arc first. So 178 minus the smaller arc, 76. If you do it the opposite way, you'll get a negative number, and that doesn't make sense when we're talking about angle measures. So when we plug this into our calculator and we simplify, we get 1/2 times 102. So we end up getting that x is equal to 51. Find the value of the variable. So we want to figure out y here. Now let's look at our two lines. The line crosses inside the circle. So would my equation use addition or subtraction? It would be the addition equation. But if I look at my two arcs, I have this arc here and this arc here. That's what I'm working with. I don't know this angle measure, and I need to know that angle measure to use my equation. But what I do notice is that I have 102. And what do we know about 102 and that missing angle? We know that they're a linear pair, meaning that they add up to 180 degrees. So let's find that missing angle measure, and I'll call it x. We know that x plus 102 is equal to 180 degrees, and we end up getting that x is equal to 72. So now that I have that missing angle measure, I can now use my equation. We know that 72 is equal to 1/2 the sum of my two arcs, and I'll say 95 plus y. So I need to solve for y. First thing I want to do is get rid of this 1/2, and to do so, it means I'm going to multiply each side of the equation by 2. So that means that these cancel out. I can simplify 2 times, I'm sorry, I just realized I wrote 72 instead of 78 for that angle measure. So let's try that again. So I need to multiply 2 by both sides of my equal sign. So the 1/2 and 2 cancel out. So 2 times 78, I get 156. That's equal to 95 plus y. Subtract 95 from each side, so 61 is equal to y. And for our last problem here, I want to solve for A, which is this arc measure here. We notice that the intersection is outside of the circle. So would that be using addition or subtraction? It would be subtraction. So we know that 30 is equal to 1/2 the difference of our two arcs. Remember, I have to use the larger arc first, so A needs to go here, minus our second arc, which is 44. Let's solve for A. So I'm going to multiply each side by 2. So these would cancel out. 2 times 30, we get 60, is equal to A minus 44. We add 44 to each side, and 104 then is equal to A.